Hey there gamers, welcome to table 24 with MC Squared here at AFK Elixirs and Eatery in Renton, Washington. Today, I'm going to be talking about a cool new game that we just got donated last week called Incredible Expeditions Quest for Atlantis. This game that I've got here in front of me is a steampunk game where you take on the role of an airship captain trying to find the drowned city of Atlantis. It's really cool. You know, it's a fun theme, steampunk game, got all those elements into it. Airships, intrigue, action, adventure, monsters, all that fun stuff. So, setting-wise, a lot of fun. Already invested, great time. So, talking about the game itself at its core is a deck builder. You are acquiring resources, building a deck of cards, shuffling it together, and then all the cards you spend to either do an action or use the cards for resources to either purchase new cards or combat encounters. This is one of those deck builders, like if you ever played Resident Evil or some of the similar ones, there are encounters and you use the resources to circumvent the encounters or purchase more resources. So that's where we're at right now. So pretty common so far. And it's a lot of fun, however, it's got a lot more going on than most of your regular deck builders. It's a lot of fun. I'm super excited to get some more plays of this. I just opened it up, took it all apart, got to learn it, and I'm really excited to start playing it. Because there's a lot more going on. You don't just have the deck of cards with resources in them. First big thing that you've got right here is your entire crew board. Because you have an entire airship, and your airship has crew, has a captain, all that stuff. So first, one of the first things that happens in the game is everyone either randomly assigns or picks one of the captains. You have a captain of your airship. This captain is Arit Namesh, Courageous Explorer. I'm super excited to be the Courageous Explorer today, going on my adventure towards Atlantis. And your explorer will determine some of your starting resources. The three primary resources in the game are money, heroism, and skullduggery. Money is, of course, the money resource. It's what you use to purchase things. Heroism is how your bravery, your courageousness, and skullduggery is how willing you are to do the bad stuff to get things done. So all of those combine to get you and your crew to Atlantis first, to be the first explorers to make it out there. So after you've got your captain, you get some starting tokens based on your captain's resources, and then you start the game. When you set the game up, everyone starts. There's a series of locations, and they all start in the middle of the board. And you, of course, start at the port city, which is where everyone disembarks from on your awesome little airships. Each of the captain is a captain of one of the specific airships, and you'll be flying the airship across the world to get to the different locations, and then get to Atlantis and win the game. So, you start in the port city, and the game is played in every time it is your turn. You will choose to take one of two different turns. You will either take a rest turn, and on the rest turns, you have the option to hire crew and acquire new resources. There's a crew deck and a resource deck, and the resource deck is your traditional deck building deck of cards that you will use to either play the cards to gain their effects. There's a bunch of starting resources. Everyone starts with a deck of 13 cards, and you'll have 5 cards in your hand at any given time. And cards will look like this. They will have the 3 symbols in the top right there, and those indicate the money, heroism, and skullduggery that we talked about before. Yellow is money, green is heroism, and black is skullduggery. Now, this card had no numbers on it. We grabbed one that has some numbers so that will make sense. Here we go. This one has a 2 there in the heroism. So either I can use this card to do its effect, its text there, which it's a lot of words that wouldn't even make sense right now, so I'm not going to leave it up. But I could either do the text of the card, or I could play it to gain 2 temporary heroism. And I would mark that on the big green track over here. And then if I'm taking a rest turn, I would spend that heroism to either hire a new crew or buy new resources. Usually, you do not need anything other than money to purchase resources, but sometimes you will need it to acquire things like that card I just showed you is called Good Omens, and so you need to be only heroic people get good omens about them, so you need heroism to acquire it. Delightful. Drinking a water temple this evening, one of the delightful blue drinks and appropriate to our steampunk theme. And it doesn't necessarily match the board, but it does match the lost drowned city of Atlantis. Very spooky. Alright. So that's the gist of the rest turn, is you spend that acquiring new resources. It also refreshes any of your crew members. Crew members. They are people like this rigger that I've got in front of me. They are the other type of resources that you acquire, but rather than going into your deck, crew members take up space on your vessel. So they will take up one of 6 spaces. You can have up to 6 crew at a time. Crew function kind of like regular cards in your hand, but rather than shuffling back into your deck, you always know exactly what you're going to have crew-wise. Crew, some either have a permanent effect, like the rigger. He makes certain types of challenges easier for you. Also, you can exhaust him to draw 3 cards from your deck. Anytime a card is exhausted, you flip it over, and bam, exhausted. Very straightforward. An exhausted card, you can't use their powers, and you cannot use them for resources. In addition to exhausting him to use his power, I could have also exhausted him to gain all 3 of his listed resources right there. So it gave me 2 temporary money, 3 temporary heroism, and 3 temporary skullduggery. So it's essentially, the rigger can either be on your ship doing things quickly and get through the cards, or you can send him off to interact with one of the encounters, which we'll get to in a minute when we get to the next type of phase. So that's what the crew will do for you. And they'll do all sorts of different things, like you can get bodyguards that will sacrifice themselves to save other members of your crew. You can get ones that increase how many cards you can have in your hand, your scientists, all over the place. So, and that's what the crew are going to do. And then after you've spent some time acquiring resources, building your crew, then you're going to venture forth in the exploration turn. The exploration turn is the other type of turn you can take, and that is when you leave the port city and start venturing out into the locations. The locations you will move your airship onto one of the locations adjacent to the port city, and then flip over one if it has not been revealed. This one here is the Temple of the Sightless Gods. Very, very religious, very fantastic sounding location. And all of the locations modify encounters. We'll get to the encounters in just a second. So, while you're in the Temple of the Sightless Gods, all your crew are considered to have -1 skullduggery skill. So, my rigger would only have 2 skullduggery instead of 3 when I send him to fight monsters at the temple. So, watch out if there's skullduggery bad guys. There's also other modifiers that they've all got. So, the different locations will be different every time. There's 20 or so locations, and in a standard competitive style game, you've only got 4 in front of you. So the game's going to be different every time with this location deck. And when you move into a new location, you will draw an encounter. Encounters are going to look like this. This is an encounter. Encounters, when you come across them, you need to overcome them by interacting with the number on the bottom and the symbol. So this one has the heroism symbol and the number 9, so you would need to generate 9 heroism points in order to beat this encounter. So this one's actually pretty good, because as soon as you encounter it as an unexpected reunion, you get to return one of your lost crew. So if one of your crew members has died, you can bring them back with this. That's pretty cool. But sometimes the encounters will look like this one, Flying Abominations. So that's super scary. That's a big horrible monster, and it's gonna try and kill your crew. So it's a creature, which is just one of the keywords. There's a lot of keywords in this game. There's lots of little decks of cards. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, which is part of why I like it, because generally deck builders get repetitive sometimes for me, so a deck builder that's got a whole lot of new, interesting ways to interact with the game is something that's really, really cool for me. So, to beat the Flying Abominations, they're much scarier. They require 18 of either Heroism or Skullduggery. You can't use a combination, but it does let you choose which skill you're going to use. But you need 18, so that's a lot. Note that the rigor I showed you before only provided 3. So you're going to have to use a lot of combinations of cards from your hand and your crew. You've got to work real hard to beat these abominations. And the reason you want to beat these encounters is because that's the only way to venture forth from a new location. The temple that we're at right now has an encounter number of 2, so you have to beat 2 encounters. So right now we've got the easy one, the Unexpected Reunion, and the really hard one, the Flying Abominations. So we assume we beat the Unexpected Reunion, and then we had to spend a whole lot to beat the Abominations, but then now we can move on and open up the next location after we've beaten both of these. If something happened and we were not able to beat the Flying Abominations, there would be consequences. Consequences as a keyword, actually, in this game. So, sometimes locations themselves will have consequences for failing. Sometimes the encounters will have consequences. The abominations, the crew member with the highest heroism gets cursed. I'll do over curses in a second. So many decks of cards. There's so much going on here. And in every game, at the beginning of the game, you will draw one of 4 consequences cards. So there will be a permanent bad stuff in every game, but it will be different in every game. The basic one that we're going to play now is Lives Were Lost, which is you have to sacrifice a crew member to fail an encounter. So, the abominations curse your person with the highest heroism, and then someone gets killed. Curses, another little deck of cards. There's a deck full of curses over here, and the monsters and the locations will all reference those curses, as well as when you are playing in competitive mode, you can sick curses on other players, and it's real vicious and cutthroat. And there's a lot of ways to interact with the other players in this game, which is another thing that deck builders don't often do. So, really cool. Now, eventually you will get to the drowned city of Atlantis, and you need to beat the 2 encounters there, and it's the first person to beat 2 encounters in the lost drowned city of Atlantis wins the game. Ta-da! And that's it. Super fun. So, there's a few other decks of cards over here, and those come up when you play this in what is one of the most exciting things about this game, I feel, and that's that it has a complete cooperative mode in addition to being a fully competitive game. So, you can either play it as you're all different explorers fighting against each other to be the first one to get to Atlantis, or you can be an exploration team setting out in a convoy to make sure you secure Atlantis. And when you do that, a couple new things open up, like there becomes a whole lot more locations. In a normal competitive game, there are 4 locations. In a normal cooperative game, there are at least 8, and you can add or subtract them based on difficulty and number of players. Also, when you're playing in cooperative mode, you introduce 2 new tracks. The Peril track, which makes every encounter more dangerous the longer you take because peril goes up, and the amount of purchases that you can purchase while resting, because everyone is purchasing from a pool, but only so many things can get purchased. So it's a give and take there on how many things people are allowed to buy. So it's 2 totally different experiences all wrapped up in one game, which is fantastic. There's so few games that do that offer 2 different experiences, one fully competitive, one fully cooperative, while maintaining the same thing. So it's a really impressive game to try and do that, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. So yes, this game does look fantastic. I'm really excited about it. The art is interesting. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of photography art, so it is not on the top of my list of art in games. That being said, the photography that is there is good photography, and it's interesting, and it's very thematic, and the costumes are great. And the artwork that is actual artwork, I'm really excited about, like the port city that I showed you earlier. It's a great steampunk town, fantastic vista with the airships getting ready to disembark, gives you that feel of adventure. So I'm about 50-50 on the art, but if you like photography, art, and board games, fantastic. This will be something great for you. So that is pretty much it. There's all sorts of other little things that go on here. I've got a giant pile of tokens over here that do tokeny things. The adventure cards and stuff will reference, but you've got the basic gist of the game now, and I really suggest you come out and play it. We have our copy here at AFK Elixirs and Eatery, which you're welcome to come out and play anytime. Our open board game night is Tuesday nights, but the game is available to you whenever you like. So come down, check that out, try a water temple, and check out all the games that we have here at AFK Elixirs and Eatery. Check out Incredible Adventures Quest for Atlantis by Liz Spain. This is a local game made by people right here in Seattle. So it's a worthwhile endeavor. You should check it out. Thank you for coming out and joining me here at Table 24. My name is MC Squared, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming out. Bye-bye.